What is up, guys? It's Mil here, and today I'm starting a new series which is called Pokemon Showcase, in which I'm presenting you Pokemon in the OU tier, and then we'll talk about stats, typing ability, moves, and what you have to consider if you want to build a team around it. Alright, let's start. Looking at the stats, you see a huge special attack stat and a huge speed stat. That speed stat lets you reach 438 with a timid nature, and that outspeeds Pokemon with a base speed up to 80 or 81, even at +1. And the most important ones here are Mega Altaria, Mega Gyarados, Hooper, and Adamant Excadrill. So if they carry a Scarf, or if they have a speed boost, you're still going to outspeed them. Also, you outspeed faster Pokemon like Mega Manectric, Mega Lopunny, and Weavile, which are pretty common in OU. The only Pokemon you're tying with is Mega Aerodactyl, but you don't see it very often. On the other hand, we have pretty low defenses. Looking at it, its HP stat is just 55. The defensive stat is just 65, so you won't survive many physical attacks. The special defensive stat is okay, but still the HP stat is pretty limiting. Let's look at typing and ability. So the typing at Psychic, which is not very good because OU is full of knockoff and U-turns, so you cannot bring it in on these. Also, because of the Psychic typing, you get Pursuit Trapped from Bisharp or Tyranitar, or also Scizor, so that's problematic. And also you just only get one stat boost. And the ability Trace allows you to steal the opponent's ability, which can be very useful. We'll talk about that later. And before Mega Evolution you have Magic Guard, which lets you use Alakazam as a status absorber. And also you won't be affected by hazards. Looking at its moves, we have Psychic in the first slot. That is the only attack that gets stat boost, which is really powerful. It is the hardest hitting moves. It hits physically defensive Pokemon, for example defensive Landers, T and Hippowdon, and you only have to bring these in range with hazards and such. You can run Psyshock for Chansey and Blissey, but Psychic is better in the long run because there are many defensive Pokemon in the OU tier. In the second slot you see Focus Blast. That move is important coverage for Dark Pokemon that hits Steel types like Ferrothorn, Heatran or Skarmory for at least 60% of their health. In the third slot there's Shadow Ball. That is for opposing Psychic types, for example Latias, Celebi, Jirachi. But you have to be careful because you can be walled by the specially defensive ones. The last slot is pretty team dependent. You can use Encore to lock Bisharp into Sucker Punch and then you can switch. Or you can lock Pokemon into a Dragon Dance. For example, if the opponent has a Mega Altaria and you have another Pokemon in, you predict the Dragon Dance, switch into Alakazam, you go for Encore, and then they are locked into their setup move because you are still faster at +1. Substitute is nice to evade Sucker Punch and make predictions easier. You can use Dazzling Gleam if you want to kill Sableye, but you also hit dragons and dark types without risking the Focus Blast miss. You can run Taunt if you want to taunt defensive Pokemon, prevent them from spiking or going for Stealth Rock, or going for T-Wave like Clefable, or healing. And if you are sure that the opponent is going to run a Ferrothorn or Scizor, you can run HP Fire, which 2-hit kills these pretty reliably. Looking at team options, Volt Switch and U-Turn is pretty nice because of Alakazam's frail nature. Hazard stacking is also very nice to bring Pokemon in range of Alakazam's attacks if you want to go for a late game sweep. And if you're building around Mega Alakazam, you should include Pokemon that deal with physical attackers, for example, Bulky Rocky Helmet Chomp that handles Scizor and also Talonflame. Looking at with which Pokemon Alakazam struggles, these are Dark types and Steel types because you have to rely on Focus Blast to kill them. Chansey and Blissey are problematic because you only have special hits. Bulky Psychic types that can tank Shadow Ball, for example, Celebi, Special Defense with Jirachi, Assault Vest Metagross and such. So you have to make sure that you cover these in the other team slots. So that makes fighting types, for example, Keldeo, Breloom, Tornadus with Superpower, good teammates because these cover the Dark types. Keldeo stands out because it kills Bisharp, Tita and resists both their steps. Breloom has Mach Punch to kill Bisharp and Tyranitar pretty fast. Tornadus is also very good because you can Hurricane the Celebi. You can Heat Wave the Special Defense with Jirachi if you run a Life Orb. And also you can use Superpower to kill Scizor and Bisharp. Next thing are Fairies that also deal with Dark types pretty nicely. And Azumarill and Clefable are very good for this job. Heatran deals with Scizor, also with Mega Sableye and Talonflame. So that works very well with Alakazam too. And Pursuit Support is nice because if you get a Pursuit off on the switch out on Celebi or Jirachi or even Assault Vest Metagross, then you bring them in range of Alakazam's attacks. Looking at checks and counters, of course, Dark types that are Sableye. If you don't run Dazzling Gleam, Pursuit Trappers are problematic because if you want to switch out, not wanting to risk the Focus Blast, they can Pursuit Trap you. Scizor lives any attack at full, so you have to watch out for that. And also you're pretty weak to Scizor, Talonflame, Bisharp, Azumarill because of the priority attacks, so you cannot stay in unless you want to get killed. And Scarfers that outspeed, for example, Landorus, T, Keldeo and Jolly Excadrill. And as I said, Bulky Psychics, you should cover these: Jirachi, Celebi, AV Metagross, Latias. You need them at 50% to kill with Shadow Ball, so you have to make sure that you bring them in range. Alright, tricks with Trace. There are many tricks, I collected some. You can trace Swift Swim, Sand Rush or the rare Chlorophyll to sweep weather teams. You can switch in on Heatran's fire moves, tracing Flash Fire. You have to be careful though, if they go for Flash Cannon, that will do a lot. You can switch in on Landorus to intimidate them. You should only do that if you really know what you're doing in that situation, because Alakazam can get killed if it switches in on Landorus. You can also trace Prankster from Thundurus and then use Substitute on the T-Wave. So that means you switch in Alakazam, trace the Prankster, go for Substitute and Thundurus T-Waves into your sub. And then you have a Mega Alakazam with a Substitute against the opposing team, which is problematic. And also you can trace useful abilities like Adaptability, Sheer Force. Sheer Force is nice because it gives you a Life Orb boost on your attacks, on all your attacks. Adaptability, that won't happen very often, but if you get it, Psychic is a very dangerous move then. You can get Regenerator from Tornadus, for example, switch it in, then switch it back out to get some HP back. Alright, now let's look at RMTs. Are there teams that were built and very successful? Yes, there are. Balance is Not Dead by Medibrolic. That is a hazard stacking balance team. It has a Ferrothorn, a Slowbro, and a Heatran, and also other Pokemon. But the idea of that team is to get up hazards pretty fast, force switches, and then try to sweep with Alakazam late game. Also PDC qualified for LT with that team, so make sure to check it out. New Kings from Draco Ninja. That's a hazard stacking HO team consisting of an offensive core of Mega Alakazam, Weavile, Specs Keldeo. Then you have Klefki to set up the spikes. You have Scarf Landorus, and also a tank jump to deal with physical attackers, so make sure to look at that team too. And the Mastermind by Invoker, which is a Volta and HO team, also spec Scaldio with Alakazam, and then you have Scarf Lando and a Scizor with U-turn, so you have the double U-turn core there. Alright, that's it. I hope you like it. Leave your suggestions down in the comments. They help a lot. And see you next time.